Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Dojo Live. I am Tulio Siragusa, broadcasting from sunny Southern California. The sun just came out finally. And I'm joined today by Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico, and
Hello.
Carlos Ponce in Cuernavaca, Mexico.
Also
My,
Hey,
very sunny.
my partners in
very sunny.
crime. We have yet to figure out what kind of crimes we're committing, but they're still my partners in crime. Anyway, today we have our guest. We have our guest Sri Ganesan, who is the founder and CEO at Rocketlane. Welcome to the show, Sri. It's a pleasure to have you. Today we're going to be talking about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, which is CX, the customer experience. And before we get into the topic of conversation, let's first start by getting to know Sri a little bit better. If you could please introduce yourself, tell us about yourself. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Studio. So I'm Sri. I'm founder and CEO of Rocketlane. This is my second startup. Previously built one from 2012 to 2015. Again, in the CX space, but focused on in-app messaging. We were one of the pioneers of introducing messaging as a way inside mobile apps to engage with customer support. This company got acquired by a company called Freshworks back in 2015. Spent 4.5 years at Freshworks, continued to grow that business within Freshworks. Went through, I would say, a very rewarding journey at Freshworks, not just because of the acquisition, but also in terms of the learnings we had in the company. And, we were truly, as a team, inspired by what we saw as, the momentum and growth we saw at Freshworks, and decided that we'd want to try something bigger again, try to emulate what Freshworks has done. And that's what got the with three co-founders. The same team is doing the new startup as well. So we decided we'll try to do something bigger this time on our own. And, 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, we started this company.
Cool. Love the name Rocketlane. It has this connotation, this image of something going, fast down some kind of a lane, like a race, powered by a rocket. Tell us a little bit about what is Rocketlane. What are you guys focused on? What's your business like?
Right. So Rocketlane, the name comes from the idea that if you put your customer-facing projects on the Rocketlane, they're going to move faster, right? And what we have going for us really is we have focused on building a brand new experience for running customer-facing projects. We're starting with customer onboarding as like the first kind of customer-facing project that we have picked. And the whole idea is today, when we look at project management tools, collaboration tools that we use with customers, they weren't built ground up for collaboration with customers. Really, most of them were built for teams to work on stuff together. Yes, collaboration, but they don't have this whole angle of, hey, what do I share with the customer? What do I keep internal to my team? And that's where we sort of are differentiating. We're saying, hey, if you use Rocketlane, you can be more transparent with your customer. You can bring them into your project tool, into your document collaboration experience, because you get to control what's visible to them, what's internal to your team in every part of the experience in a very granular way. So you can be confident in inviting the customer into this experience. And what that means is real-time visibility for the customer without having to deal with internal complexity of the vendor, right? So you have your elaborate playbook, you decide what's shared, what's internal, and you have your repeatable methodology that you're executing on with each of these customers. And Rocketlane enables all of that to happen in a streamlined way, take your customer to like faster go lives, faster time to value, and like a more delightful experience through that journey, through a modern, product built for sharing with the customer.
Excellent. So we're going to look forward to learning some more. Before we do, let's introduce the topic and get right into it. Carlos?
Yeah, absolutely, Tulio. Thank you. Well, first of all, Sri, a little note here.
You're supposed to wear glasses to participate in Dojo Live. Can you see Coolio, Kim, myself? You need glasses. Let's all get and also a black T-shirt. Well, I have that, so you got that covered. No, seriously, folks, we're here.
I'll join you, Sri. Except I can't see a thing now.
Exactly. There you go. Well, that makes, 2 and 2. That's good. So, well, Sri, as you can see, we're here to have a fine conversation in a fun manner. Just enjoy each other. And the topic that our guest chose for today, well, it's none other than reimagining customer experience. We're put the customer in the driver's seat. So we're going to be answering the question, should we rethink the customer's participation and experience during the implementation and onboarding process? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today on Dojo Live. So first question, Sri, for you. Why did you choose this particular topic? Why did you feel it was relevant for today's day and age in tech? Let's start with that. Thank you.
Right. I think the last decade has clearly been seen this huge rise of SaaS companies, right? Before that, you had on-premise software that people would use, and with on-prem software, if someone bought a license, then you're going to set them up. You're going to take how much ever time you want to set up that customer, and they've bought it. They're stuck with it, right? Versus today in the new SaaS world, if I buy software this year, if I don't have it implemented in the first few months, next year when it comes up for renewal, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I'm not even using your software, so why should I pay for it? So it becomes important that you really, deliver faster to the customer. You deliver the right experience to the customer, which is why you need to also put the customer in the driver's seat. They're buying your software to get value out of it, not to cancel it at the end of the year, right? So when they're buying, it's our job as software vendors to then say, hey, we're going to do the best we can to deliver a great experience for you through that journey. The first part of that journey is really onboarding and implementation, and that's where that's the true first moment of truth where the customer is experiencing a partnership with you, right? And we want to make sure that you're able to delight the customer in that phase. And that's why I thought it's an important part of the journey. And the idea is to then really focus on how to improve CX around that journey and how to make the customer, bring them back in the picture, give them the right control, not have customer sharing and customer visibility as an afterthought, not leave them to the mercy of a project manager's status update on a weekly basis. Instead, like put them in control through a more transparent experience.
So Sri, let's break this down to like a real life example, if you don't mind. Let's pick a company and the process they would normally go through to onboard a client and how they would typically handle that and what that experience might look like for the end client vis-a-vis how it would work with your platform. Can you give us an example, maybe a use case example of the before and after?
Sure. So what happens today? Most companies use typically, I'm going to say, spreadsheets or Trello boards to onboard their customers from a project perspective, right? So you'd see that they walk into a kickoff meeting, they've made a presentation, right? Which showcases what's the rest of the journey going to be like. So they're going to send that PPT to you. The next thing you know, there are checklists that are shared with you on email. So as a customer, you're receiving these different documents, different links from the vendor, right? And you need to stay on top of all of these documents. There's a scoping document, there's a requirements document, there's this project plan, which is usually just a spreadsheet with items and deadlines on it, or it could be like a Asana project or a Trello board, right? And you're sort of having to multitask, switch between these different work streams of sorts, right? So you're sort of looking at these siloed experiences, trying to stay on top of what's happening on all of those. If there's a clarification sort on a document you're collaborating with the vendor on, then you need to stay on top of the work getting done inside that document. And then there's, of course, email threads as well, where you have your status updates, responses by different people. So it becomes pretty taxing, pretty stressful as a
Very
customer,
manual
right?
intensive, very manual intensive, right? That's what
That's
I'm
right.
hearing.
That's right.
Okay. Okay.
And you need to always know, are you looking at the right version of these documents, the right version of these project plans as well?
Right. So let's fast forward. The company providing the service or the product implements Rocketlane. How would that experience now look like for the customer and everybody involved?
Right. Now, what happens is the customer gets invited into a portal powered by Rocketlane, which is pretty much, you know, branded and owned by the vendor. So let's say it's Acme Solutions, right? So Acme Solutions is going to send a magic link to the customer. The customer clicks on that magic link, they're taken to success.acmesolutions.com, where they can see where they are in the journey with the vendor. They can see all of the documents shared with them, all of the meeting notes, status updates, all of that in that one portal. Everything is just a click away, right? So you no longer, as a customer, need to go searching for what's the right link to, look for a document, or, oh, am I looking at the right version of things? You know that what's presented to you in this customer portal is indeed the latest version of everything, right? Whether it's a document or a project plan, or all of that. What's also changed is, if there's a task or a document that I'm working on with the vendor, I can collaborate right there on that portal. So I can make changes to the task. I can, add comments on a document or task right from there, and truly work hand in hand with the vendor. If I have a question or a clarification on a document or a task arising from a document, and this happens often during onboarding projects, there's work emerging from these documents. You can say, hey, you can, select a section of a document and say, create a task out of this and assign it to the vendor, right? So it all gets tracked together in one place. And the beauty is, I don't have to still remember a separate login or anything. I just got a link, I clicked on it, I'm in. I get notified for work that's on my plate and, pending on me through email. I can click back from that email to go and engage. If there's if the vendor wants to nudge me, they send a message on Rocketlane, and that also lands up in my inbox, so I know that there's work or messages waiting on me. I can go back to Rocketlane and engage. So it
I
sort of
like this
streamlines
idea.
the journey.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean,
I was going to use that word, streamlined. Especially, let's say, heaven forbid, I get hit by a bus this morning. Somebody else on my team, in theory, could come in and pick up where they need to, right? Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, that clearly puts everybody in the driver's seat, not just the customer, because at any given moment, there's nothing worse than the person in charge of implementing the new product, and their bosses are like, so what's going to happen next? And they're like, well, let me go fumble through all my messages and see the deck that they send me, versus just opening the portal and say, here's what's happening, here's the steps, here's what's involved, here's the documentation. Oh, I noticed something's off, let me make some comments on this. That's fantastic. What does that also streamline the time it takes to go from a client being sold to being onboarded? What does that look like? Is there a percentage of reduction of time to get the value out of the new service offering? In other words, are companies also realizing revenues faster because they're onboarding faster because of this? Any use cases around that?
Absolutely. So that's one of the reasons why we picked this problem as what we want to focus on. We realize that it's a board level conversation for many of these companies, that the gap between their live ARR and the contracted revenues is increasing because they're not able to take customers live quickly. And what we have seen is, when you can hold the customer accountable by giving them that transparent experience, they also tend to do their work faster. That everyone can see who's who the tasks are waiting on. So all team members are going to act in the interest of pushing this project across the finish line. So we've seen that doing this transparent engagement can bring down that time to value by as much as 25 to 30%, right? And that's why we are doing this, because we believe that it helps everyone get to success faster, right? So you succeed with the customer succeeds with your solution, and that's the beginning of customer success, really.
Sri, I have a question. And my question is more tied to the space in general rather than just Rocketlane, and also because of what we have all gone through last year and part of this year, is we're talking about customer experience, right? We're talking about the customer's participation. So, how have you seen that customers' participation and behavior in general has, let's call, changed or shifted or something else because of all these changes that we're going worldwide? And I'm talking about the pandemic, okay, and how it has affected many many verticals and spaces, and especially in tech. And so a lot of companies have had to pivot or change or whatever. But regarding the customer themselves, have you seen any shift in behavior or in engagement, or is there anything you can share with us about this?
Well, I would say there are probably a couple of things that come to mind. One is, definitely in terms of adoption of tech for various things. I think there's a more, there's willingness to do that. In the past, maybe if I sent them a new tool to try out to work with us, they may frown, right? They may say, hey, I don't want to try one more experience. But now they know that the new normal is using these digital tools to engage. So that's become a given, and hence I think there's a willingness to try out new experiences from the customer side as well. The other thing I would say is, maybe one of the things that as a vendor you realize when engaging with the customer is that you need to be sensitive to what else may be happening in this customer's life, especially during a pandemic. For example, we have customers now in India, and while when I work with customers in the US, everything is just fine. I know that when I follow up with a customer in India, I need to be sensitive to what's happening at the moment with their personal lives as well, right? Because there's a lot of rise in cases again over here, and what that means is, I think we see that customers are also sensitive towards, hey, these folks are working alongside us to make us successful. I think we see less of ghosting, at least when, of course, if they have a personal emergency, they're going to still, look after that. But otherwise, I think people are sensitive of each other's time and efforts a lot more today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you mentioned this willingness to be introduced to new tools and new ways of doing things. Let's speak specifically to putting the customer in the driver's seat. What would you say to those tech companies who might still have some resistance to doing that? Meaning, maybe it can feel like customer meddling, like, oh gosh, like we're the experts here, we know what we're doing, let us do it our way. I don't know, maybe you've seen those memes where it's like there's this nice design and then somebody says, oh, maybe you could add some background color and maybe this and maybe that. And then the end, it just turns into this ugly muck. So what is there a resistance to putting your customers in the driver's seat? What's that like? How could you change their minds? And perhaps what is some measures that we could take to increase that engagement, but still maintain that semblance of control as well?
That's right. The customer's not always right.
That's true. Very true. And I think, especially with respect to your implementation onboarding projects, you as a vendor, you've probably done like 200 implementations. So you know what is your path to success, right? Versus the customer may come with reservations around how you execute. So when I say put the customer in the driver's seat, it's not about doing whatever the customer wants. It's more about saying, hey, give them the right visibility, transparency, and control to know what's happening, to push you on some aspects, to engage with you openly, right? And for everything to be there for people to see. And the two key things which we believe helps you put your customer at the driver's seat is adapt, like having some flexibility in your methodology that takes into account what is the maturity of the customer. So if you have a customer, for example, who's first time, let's take the example of a chatbot, right? If I'm a customer implementing a chatbot, and if it's the first time I'm doing that, then perhaps you have a certain methodology that helps me get from 0 to 1, and that's what you want the customer to experience as well as their first win with the chatbot. But if it's someone moving from a competitor to your chatbot, then probably their expectations of where they want to land is also different. And so you're going to have a slightly, a different methodology for them that takes them from 1 to 2, right? So not everyone's at the same maturity level. So you have the ability to tweak your journey based on where the customer is at right now. And that's how you put them in the driver's seat, because they know they want to get to a certain goal. And obviously, if they want to get from 0 to 5, you need to reset their expectations and help them realize that they can't do that. But if they want to get from 1 to 2, then you shouldn't take them through the same 0 to 1 journey as step 1. Instead, you need to adapt your methodology to take them from that 1 to 2.
Understood. Thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm kind of equating this to working in a restaurant or something, right? So what we're focusing on is like the hostess and that first encounter of, was I greeted well? Is this a clean place? Is the table ready for me? And then if that's not the case, then a lot of times I just turn around and walk out the door, right? And so the idea is with this customer implementation that we got them to sit down, and that was a good experience. And then there's other variations that might apply after that. With your own experience.
If you don't mind, I'll extend that analogy of the restaurant,
please.
Right? So what you want when you walk into that restaurant is a consistent experience every time. If I've ordered like fries or burger last time and I had it a certain way, my expectation is that every time this restaurant is able to deliver that consistent experience to me, right? And from a restaurant perspective, I want to make sure that irrespective of who's in the kitchen today, things come out the same way. So I have my procedure set up, right? I need to follow every step in order to deliver that same experience to every customer. And that's something that, we help them accomplish. And the other thing we do is, yes, you may have a messy kitchen inside. You may have things that you don't want the customer to see. And that's the other piece which Rocketlane enables, which is saying, hey, you decide how much you want to share with the customer. You have that granularity to control and say, hey, this is all internal stuff, internal set of tasks that the customer does not have to care about. It's too much complexity for them to handle, so you can keep that private.
Yeah, and I imagine that there's this benefit for me as well. Like the further and further I can get down in my pipeline, the more refined and the better product that I can produce, right? My hamburger can consistently get more delicious.
Right.
Sri, I have a question. I got a question here, and time flies, right? And we're approaching the final segments of today's conversation. So before we get there, I'd like to specifically about the company, about Rocketlane. And this is with the folks that might be watching, who might be either engineers or UX designers who might at some point come work for you. They might be watching the show. So if you were talking to these people, what would you say to them that makes Rocketlane a really, really cool company to work for? Or what would you tell them to about the company itself in terms of what defines a company culture-wise? What is important for you?
I think one of the things we have always focused on is, very strong element of ownership, right? So people who work with Rocketlane, you would find that it's they're passionate about the product they're building. They're all passionate about leveling up as well, right? So each one has this, they've done something before, and they want to do better, and that's why they joined us. They didn't join us because of the money we offer or ESOPs or something like that. Of course, all of that plays a role as well, but it's more about saying, hey, what can I learn in this startup journey? So we have brought people in who have that growth mindset, who want to do more, learn more, and build a world class company, right? So all of them are part of building a world class company, not just their roles. So you will find that people have opinions about everything in our company, and they will express that to us on our Slack group, right? So they're going to say, hey, if I put out this video, I'm sure that when I share the link to this video, there are going to be 5 people who come and say, hey, you could have done this better, and I would have answered it this way, and you made this mistake. And I take all that feedback as well, and all of us have that culture of open feedback, because we know and recognize it's not about someone pointing out mistakes. It's about how we can push each other to be world class, to get better at what we're doing.
I see. Thank you so much, Sri. Kim?
Yeah, talking about mistakes made or things that you could do better. If I heard you correctly, Rocketlane just launched about a year ago in the middle of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, correct?
So we formed the company then. It's just been 2 months since we launched the product itself.
Okay, perfect. Well, congratulations. So what advice would you give, or what do you think that you did right throughout this challenging time to get that done? And what is something maybe you would have done differently for advice for somebody who might be in those same shoes right now?
Right. I think because it's our second startup as a team, it feels like we got a lot of things right this time as compared to the last time. So I have more mistakes from my last journey. But if you ask me what we're doing right this time, I think largely it's around how we pick people for the team, and how we, during a pandemic, with a completely new team, how we sort of still manage to keep that culture alive of ownership, of people caring about what they're building, people caring about the customer. And some of the things we did for that were, firstly, I think every customer conversation we had, right from like problem discovery, right, when we were talking to others about, hey, is this a real problem for you? We recorded all of those conversations, and we created highlight reels out of it, which we shared with the team. So anyone new joining our team has this playlist of videos they can listen to understand the customer problem, to have that empathy for what it is that we're solving, why is it important, why should people care, right? The second thing I think which we've done well is creating that bond in the team, right? So it's hard when everyone is new. We've not met most of our team before, right, in person. So we have a few rituals we created. So I do an interview of everyone who joins the team on their first day, which is more casual. What can we learn about them on the personal front? Share that with the rest of the team. So we have a folder of all the intro videos, so that anyone joining can also go and listen to the other intro videos of the rest of the team, get to know something about them. We have a quiz about our company and team, which introduces some fun elements of different people on the team, and about the company. We have a weekly meeting, which we call All Faces. So this is like all hands, but you need to turn on your Zoom. So it's All Faces. And it's just a session where sometimes we have like an update to share with the team on, where things are, or, what successes we've had, what we need to get better at. But usually it's just a session for us to, have fun together, play a game together, etc. Still works while we are like 21 people. We sometimes also try different tools to do a more engaging conversation, or play a game together, etc. There's also a tool that we use, and I should mention this. It's called Kaapi.team, Kaapi.team, and this sort of has served us really well, because it sort of posts questions every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesdays are like personal questions, so that team can learn about each other, and Thursdays are more professionally, if they want to ask something, etc. Tries to help them open up.
I love it.
I love those dynamics. Thank you for sharing. We might have to think about borrowing, not stealing, borrowing.
Plagiarizing.
Yeah, Sri, we're about to wrap up. Before we go off the air, what sort of words of wisdom would you like to leave our audience with today? In general,
think,
whatever it is that you want to say about, yes.
Yeah, I think assuming the audience today is focused more on like tech startups, etc. I would just say uh, the single most important thing for you to chase in any startup, I would say, is the right kind of momentum, right? So whether it's building product, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, everywhere you want to achieve a certain momentum, because if you achieve momentum, things like all problems become happy problems, right? And that's my learning from my last journey to this one, where and what we learned from Freshworks as well, that uh, if you're struggling to create momentum for what you're doing, then problems look more daunting. You need to, you know, uh, tell stories to overcome the lack of momentum to investors, to your own team, etc. And it's all revolving around hope. Versus if you manage to create the right momentum, then it's more about solving the growth problems that come your way, and that's a much more rewarding journey for everyone involved.
Thank you so much, Sri. It's been a
Thanks,
great
Sri.
pleasure.
It's been great to have you as a guest. Thanks for sharing all these great tips. We have to stay in touch with you to see how things progress and keep tabs on your success. Definitely would love to have you back maybe in a year or so. Just stay with us for a couple of minutes as we go off the air. I think we're done for the week, Carlos. So we have any other guests this week?
No, sir. We're done.
All right.
Yeah, we're done. And well, especially because we have the all hands, and so we don't have any more confirmed guests this week. And
but we will probably replay a goodie and oldie tomorrow and Thursday. So
and Thursday,
tune in at 12 o'clock anyway for a goodie oldie. And if you want to be a guest on the show, just make a comment wherever you're watching saying, I'd like to be a guest, and we'll reach out to you.
And of course, there's always the Monday recap show where you can participate if you want to be part of the recap show, in which we recap the shows from the week before in 10 minutes. Again, reach out to us and we'll send you an invitation, and you should be on your way to getting your 10 minutes of fame.
Right, and you get to participate before the recap and after, when all the fun happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So thanks for being with us. Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe.
Thanks again, Sri.